What's good? My name is Charity Croft. It's Christmas time! But why this time? I mean, I'm sure you already know December 25th has nothing to do with Jesus' birthday. According to the Bible, he was born sometime between spring and early October, but it was absolutely not December 25th. So then what is the reason for the season? Well, I'm glad you asked. It's most likely because in the year 336, the Roman Emperor Constantine was trying to do away with paganism and really make Christianity a thing. Well, at that time, the biggest ancient festival was something called Saturnalia. This was a festival celebrating the god Saturn that lasted a little over a week starting on December 17th. The ancient Romans chose this time to celebrate Saturn because it was during winter solstice, which is when the sun is in a very specific position in the sky. Now, we won't get too far into that, but listen, once you learn why Saturday is named after Saturn and why Sunday is named after the sun, and notice how most religious activities take place on one of those 2 days, a lot of things will start making sense to you. Anyway, so Constantine thought, since everybody's already celebrating at this time, I can just make this the day that we celebrate Jesus, and the whole world can make a much easier transition to Christianity. You gotta realize that at this time, most people worshiped multiple deities and were so-called pagans. Well, since Constantine and the Council of Nicaea were hell-bent on making Christianity the most powerful religion on earth, they just slapped their holidays on top of pagan holidays so the people could convert easier. Side note, the reason why Easter is always celebrated on a different day every year is because it's always the Sunday after the first full moon of the vernal equinox. Super pagan, nothing to do with Jesus' resurrection, nothing. Anywho, Christmas trees were used to decorate Saturnian temples. Mistletoe was used by ancient druids because they believe it had mystical powers. And presents were given during winter solstice to celebrate the spring to come. Pagan, pagan, pagan! And you ain't even know it. So pagan, in fact, that Christmas was outlawed in the New World when the Puritans first got here because they knew how pagan it was. It didn't become okay till the 1680s when they realized that gift giving could be profitable. Speaking of pagan, what does that word even mean? Like, why do we act like pagan means devil worshiper? The actual definition of pagan is any person holding religious beliefs other than the main world religions. So in other words, anybody who is not Christian or Muslim. Words like that is how Christianity was able to take over the entire planet by creating a bad word for people who didn't convert. He is pagan! Kill him! Back to Christmas. Who is this guy? Well, it's Santa Claus. He's actually based off a real person named St. Nicholas, but you probably knew that already. But did you know that St. Nick was a bishop in the Church of Turkey? He anonymously gave 3 bags of gold to a poor family, and after that, everybody just made up this legend about anonymous gifts coming from a guy named St. Nicholas, and Santa Claus was born. And now he lives in the North Pole, even though he's from the Middle East. So that means that originally Santa Claus's gift giving was a noble act of helping the poor. But in the 1800s, companies found that it was far more profitable to make it about little kids, because of course people will buy gifts for kids before they buy them for poor people. And so companies like Macy's started using Santa's name to make Christmas into a corporate capitalist fiasco. But here is the biggest point of this video. In America alone, we spend more than $465 billion on Christmas presents every year. Those are gifts for one day, $465 billion. Well, check this out. According to Charity Water, you can buy a well for $5,000 that will provide water for 250 people for 20 years. And according to Feed the Children, you can buy a meal for 300 people for $120. So if you do the math, $120 times 3 meals a day times 365 days a year, then add in the cost of the water well, you could provide 300 starving people with food and water for a whole year with only $136,400. So if we take that $465 billion we spend, we could feed 1,020,000,000 people for a year. Well, it gets crazier. According to World Food Program's hunger statistics, there are only 795 million starving people on Earth. So that means with the money America alone spends on one Christmas, we can literally end world hunger for a year. Now let's take that one step further. If we just did away with the entire gift-giving part of Christmas, and every year we use the same money that we would have spent on presents to instead feed the poor, there would be no such thing as hunger, and the entire world would have food. Merry Christmas. I love you.